Alright. So to start off, review of probability ito. How would you define probability ba? Balik tayo, simula tayo sa definition. Anyone? Sige, nalimutan ko yung mga ano nyo, Edwin. Nalimutan ko yung mga nickname nyo eh.
Okay lang, sir. Probability is the chances of a event happening.
Chances of an event happening. So keyword na gusto ko maalala is event. Property siya ng event. Okay? So ang event, meron siyang probability. So that's correct, all right? Hala. Having problems with my audio. Wait lang ha. Paano kaya to? Sige, alright. So, start tayo. So, review of probability. Sabi ni Edwin kanina ay chances of an event happening. So, it's a property ng event. Therefore, we have to define these preliminary terms muna. So, statistical experiment, sample space, sample point, and event. So, a statistical experiment is any process generating well-defined outcomes. So, isang example niya, nasa next slide, rolling a balanced six-sided die. Ano ba yung outcomes niya? Pwedeng 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mga examples din na medyo generic are gonna be, tawag dito, yung mga tossing a coin. So, the outcomes are heads and tails. So, any other example, statistical experiment, kahit ano talaga yan eh. Basta meron kang well-defined outcomes. Sige, hintayin ko mga sagot nyo. Kahit i-chat nyo na lang.
Sir, bigay po ng example ng
Sige. Kahit anong statistical experiment. Coin toss. Kasabi ko lang ng coin toss. Iba pa, meron pa ba kayong mas creative na example? Any process daw eh. Generating well-defined outcomes. Okay. Rolling a dice. Nandun din sa example yung rolling a dice. Ito rin. Generic yan eh, yung mga example. Laging dyan tayo magsisimula. Sige yung iba. Getting a queen in the deck of cards. Okay. So, bakit ko tinatanong yan? Ayan, lumalabas na yung mga sagot. Bakit ko tinatanong yan? Kasi we have to differentiate probability with an experiment with an outcome. Okay. Yung mga sagot nyo, related lahat. Ayan, kunwari ito, probability of a chicken being fertilized or magiging balot po. Probability yan. Ang statistical experiment natin is paano ba to? Paano ba i-word yun? Chicken status. So either fertilize or balut. Ganun. So lotto, what about the lotto? It's an experiment generating, pwede kasi na ang statistical experiment ko is the winnings. Pwede na ang statistical experiment ko is the combination of numbers. So yun nga, kaya nakalagay dyan well-defined outcomes eh. Kaya ko kayo tinatanong. Ito. Kasi Lotto itself, it doesn't give well-defined outcomes, but specific na numbers na itinaya sa Lotto, statistical experiment siya. Winnings na pwede kong mapanalunan sa Lotto, statistical experiment siya. Ito ba, probability of getting hit by lightning. Getting hit by lightning, yung statistical experiment. Either yes or no, di ba? Yung outcomes. Yun, kaya ako tinatanong siya. Chances of rolling a 5-star sa Genshin. Hindi ako nag-Genshin, hindi ko alam yan. 2K lang ang alam kong laro buong buhay ko. But Yeah, that's probability, di ba? Chances of rolling a 5-star. Ay, 2K14, sorry. 2K14 lang ang alam ko rin, alam ko, tas peke pa. Hindi ko rin alam yung mga opening pack na yan. Makaluma ako. Ano pa ba yung mga sagot nyo? Rolling a dice, getting a queen in a deck of cards. So getting a queen, ano ba to? Parang chances ulito eh, but yung number of queens in a deck of cards, pwedeng isa, dalawa, tatlo. Number of queens sa ano pala sa hand kapag nag-draw ka ng 5 cards. Pwedeng wala, isa, dalawa, tatlo or 4, 'di ba? So yun, basically yung process, hindi yung chance, hindi yung outcome ang statistical experiment ha. Yun lang naman yung gusto ko i-point out kaya ako tinanong. Every answer is valid dito but it's another aspect. Kunwari nga, ayun, roulette wheel pa pala isa. The outcome on the roulette wheel. Ayun, statistical experiment nga, yung roulette wheel pala. Either, kunwari ganito yung itsura ng roulette wheel. Ano ba yan? 1 peso, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So ito yung experiment, spinning the roulette wheel, outcomes yung 1 to 8. Sige, enough about that. Wait lang. Baka mapatagal tayo pag masyado akong maarte sa mga definition. So yun yung statistical experiment. Let's just use the next one, yung rolling a dice as an example para madali. Pero lahat ng sinabi nyo yun, connected sila sa isang statistical experiment. So in this particular experiment, itong rolling a die, meron tayong 3 components: sample space, sample points, and events. So first, the sample space is a set of all possible outcomes. So babalik tayo dun sa sets na sets na lessons ninyo sa algebra. So paano ba nagsusulat ng sets? Di ba we denote it by a capital letter, S para sa sample space, and then we enclose the elements through curly braces. So that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yan yung sample space. Okay. Tapos, yung sample point, every element. So bali kunwari ganito, kung naalala nyo pa yung sets ninyo, universal set is equivalent to the sample space. An element is equivalent to a sample point. So 1 is a sample point, 2 sample point, 3 sample point, and so on. Then lastly, an event is any subset of the sample space. Ano bang events yung mga pwede nating ma-define dito sa set na to? Suppose we have event A. Subset daw siya, di ba? So set din. Let A be the event where I roll an odd number. So A is gonna have 1, 3, and 5. So subset siya ni sample space. So we have a number of events that we can define. Let B be the event where I roll a multiple of 3. Laman niya is 3, 6, di ba? So subsets niya, subsets ni sample space. So yun yung point nung first na tanong ko lang talaga. Ito yung experiment, ito yung all possible outcomes, ito yung mga outcomes, ito yung events, ang probability property ni event. Konektado pero iba-iba. Ha? Okay. Sige. So next tayo. So sabi ni Edwin kanina, probability is a property ng events. So how do we define probability? Chances of an event happening. But there are 3 different approaches when defining probability. Si classical, empirical, and subjective. Okay, so the classical approach, we express the probability of A in this notation. Makes sense naman, di ba? P of A, probability of an event A. And it's computed as the cardinality of set A over the cardinality of the sample space. Yan ay na-define na natin kanina. Put into context natin sa problem. Event A natin kanina is I roll an odd number. So what's the cardinality of set A? Basically, ilan yung elements niya? 3, di ba? So that's gonna be 3 over 6 or 1/2, which makes sense naman. 50% chance na odd number yung ma-roll ko. Okay, so next, an empirical approach in defining probabilities. Again, we're looking for the chance of event A happening. So in an empirical approach, probability is computed as follows. A small n over capital N, where you perform an experiment capital N times and you count the number of successes small n times. So kunwari, 100 times ako nag-roll ng 6-sided die, ang nakuha ko ay 61 odd numbers out of 100 rolls. It's possible, right? So this will be our empirical probability. We're pertaining to the same event, rolling an odd number, pero different approaches. Kanina 1/2 sa classical, sa empirical 61 over 100, 61%. So question is, anong tama? Parehas tama yan. Ibang approach lang, di ba? Okay, so one interesting property lang though ni empirical probabilities, if we perform the experiment close to infinity, as we perform the experiment repeatedly, yung empirical probability, sige, gawin natin P of A sub-empirical, approaches yung P of A classical. What do we mean by that? If you perform the experiment repeatedly, magiging 1/2 din yan sa dulo. It will slowly approach 1/2. That's one interesting property of empirical probabilities. Alright, so next, a subjective approach. Ibahin natin yung event. Let's say, let A be the event where you get a 4.0 sa STT101. Ano palagay niyo yung probability? Wala bang matapang sum? Zero daw. So P of A equals 0 daw. Sige, i-take natin yung sagot na yan. 0% chance daw of getting 4.0 in STT101. Ay, hindi naman. Sige na nga, gawin natin 100%. Joke lang yun, syempre. Kunwari daw equal to 1 yan. Okay. Banding lang po. Bakit? Kasi palagi ko ganoon. Palagi ko 100%. So, there's no theoretical basis. There's no empirical basis. O purely opinion. So, still a valid definition of probability. Yan, subjective approach. May mga bagay din kasi na talagang hindi mo mapipigilan. Subjective talaga yung magiging approach mo. Kunwari ganito. Ayan, sorry, puro basketball na isip kong example. Kunwari, anong probability na yung team na Warriors yung mag-champion ngayong season? Medyo mahirap i-define classically and empirically, di ba? 100%. So, maybe yung mga experts, meron silang opinion. Yun, subjective approach, di ba? Warrior fan ata ito. Okay, so enough about basketball. Baka mara-rabbit hole tayo pag sinimulan ko yung basketball. Sobrang addict ako sa basketball. Ayan, so so yung gagawin natin sa klase, puro classical approach lang. Okay. Yung empirical tsaka subjective, at least gets nyo naman na they are valid definitions of probability as well. So kunwari, yung probability of getting hit by lightning, isa na lang yun. Paano mo ba sasabihin yung probability of getting hit by lightning? Maybe expert's opinion, maybe rin from past data, di ba? So kung from past data siya, empirical. I don't think there's a classical way of doing that. So yun, gamit tayo ng classical approach na lang for the next items, mga examples natin. So, okay, so next slide, probability loss. Yan, I don't know if you're the type na itatanong bakit po ganyan. Pero yun, ang gusto ko sana dito, paniwalaan na lang natin, tama tong 5 to. Pero explain natin isa-isa. Okay, dyan na po ako nawala. Sige. Sige, kung ganon, edi dahan-dahanin natin ito. Ano ba yung mga yan? So the first law, so basically nga ganito nilista natin yung 5 yan, paniwalaan natin, tama lahat yung 5 yan. Explain natin kung bakit. Try ko kayo i-convince din. Even if hindi formal proof. So number 1, the probability of a null event is 0. What's a null event? So a null event is basically an impossible event. So an impossible event, ano ba yung example ng impossible event? Simplehan lang natin. Pag nag-roll ako ng 6-sided die, the event of getting a 7, impossible event, di ba? So we're sure that 0 yung probability niya. Yan, ganun ka-fundamental, kaya talagang sana parang axiomatic na itong mga ito. By axioms, I mean, pag sabi mo kasing axiom, parang mathematical statements na paniwalaan mo na lang. It's consistently regarded as true. But yeah, that's the gist of number 1. Number 2 is the probability of the sample space is 1. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng probability of the sample space? In the context ni rolling a dice problem, the probability of getting something from the sample space. Since the sample space is defined as all possible outcomes na, diba? Sure ka, nandyan lang yung sagot. So P of S is equal to 1. Probability that my outcome will be in the sample space, 100% chance. Nandito kayo. Nandun sa sample space yan. Okay, for the next 3, we need to remember medyo dito yung mga natin, rules sa sets. Paano ba kayo nag-discuss ng sets nung mga high school? Naka-Venn diagram? Oo daw. So sige, gamit tayo ng Venn diagram mamaya. Although hindi siya formal proof kapag ganun. Hindi rin naman kayo math major pala. Mga math major, maarte sa ano ganyan. Kailangan formal yung proof na ganito, ganyan. Okay. So the third rule, P of A complement, A complement yung basa natin is 1 minus P of A. What's A complement ba? Basically, ito kasing A complement, we're basically saying not A. Sige, lagay natin dito yung given. Event that I roll an odd number. So what's A prime gonna be? Not odd, di ba? So even. So A prime will be 2, 4, 6. Okay, so the probability of getting an even number is just 1 minus the probability of getting an odd number. 1/2 yung probability ng odd number, 1/2 din yung probability ng even number. Basically, ang nangyayari lang naman dyan kung, kunwari ganito, 70% chance, 80% chance na pasado kayo sa Stat 101, 20% chance of failing, di ba? Parang taas pala nun. Pero sige, 80-20 daw kunwari. Yung bagsak ang mataas ha. Mataas yung 20% bagsak. Okay. Baliktaran lang. Yun lang naman itong complement rule na tinatawag. Ito naman, yung letter number 4, you can illustrate it like this. So, through Venn diagrams. So, suppose we have set A, we have set B. Established naman na, di ba, sets yung mga events natin. So, we have set A, set B. How do we visually represent this? So, we're looking at the total area of set A. So, eto, yung shade ko na green, it's equal daw to probability of A intersection B. So, it's gonna be this green shaded area plus A intersection B complement. So, ibig sabihin nun, nasa A ka na wala sa B. Pag shade natin, eto siya. So parang green plus blue is P of A. Total area ni A, di ba? So yan yung logic behind number 4. And then number 5, the probability of A union B. Ano ba ang A union B? Pag shade natin, the whole 2 circles. Union ng dalawa. Magsasama yung dalawang sets. So ito, di ba? Probability of A union B is gonna be P of A. So shade ko yung P of A, total area ni A, plus total area ni B. Shade ko yung B. Minus intersection. So bakit ko minus yung intersection? If we add P of A and P of B kasi, nag-overlap dun sa gitna, di ba? So parang doble ko siya nabibilang, yung intersection na yun. So I have to subtract it once. So that's why number 5 is also true. Alright, so now that we have mentioned lahat yung mga laws, gagamitin lang naman natin sila in order to answer probability problems. Parang yun yung mga bala natin para sagutin yung problems. Yung third ulit. Sige nga, simplehan lang natin yung third. Masyado ata akong maarte mag-explain. Sige, wait lang. Sagutin ko yung mga tanong nyo lahat. Number 3 daw muna. Isipin mo na lang, 90% chance na uulan mamaya. Di ba 10% chance na hindi? Ganun lang siya. Baliktaran, balik. Okay na ba yun? Oo. Parang 0.9 daw kasi yung uulan. 1 minus 0.9, 0.1. Siyempre, ito yung chance na hindi uulan. So next, may question. Alin yung intersection? Ay, ito yung sign ng intersection, ha? So intersection is literal na intersection ni A and B sa Venn diagram. So yung may doble na kulay. Green, yung may green and blue. Ano, okay naman? Sige, move on na tayo ulit. And so, gamitin na natin sa example 1. So, suppose we toss a pair of 6-sided dice. What's the probability that yan? A, B, C, D. So, let A be the... wait lang. May question ulit. Sige, wait lang. Ayan, ang gulo pala nung ano. Sige, balikan nga natin. Sige, si S, si A, at si A prime ay mga events. Si S, ang laman niya ay lahat ng numbers from 1 to 6. Si A, ang laman niya ay 1, 3, and 5, odd. Si A prime, ang laman niya ay 2, 4, 6. So bakit ganyan? Kasi dinefine ko na ito ay odd. Ang A prime, ibig sabihin lang, hindi ka odd. Ibig sabihin even ka, di ba? Kaya siya naging ganito. Okay. Ang P of S, P of A, at P of A prime, number lahat ang sagot dyan. Probability na kasi siya eh. Parang pag binasa mo siya, anong probability ng S? Anong probability ng A? Anong probability ng A prime? Ganun yung notation na yan. Okay, so tingnan natin. Anong chance na isa sa numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 ang lalabas? Di ba 100% chance na makukuha ko silang lahat? P of A, anong probability na odd yung makukuha? 1/2. 3 out of 6. P of A prime, anong probability na hindi odd? 1 out of 2 din, 3 out of 6. So, okay na ba yun? Sige, at least yun. Ito yung kanina ko pa inaano na magkaibang event at saka yung probability ng event. Okay. So, now we answer these problems. Let A be the event where the same number is obtained from the two dice. So, letter A, we get P of A. As we've mentioned, it's just the classical approach, N of A over N of S. What would be N of S? Huwag na natin isulat yung sample space. Ilan yung outcomes na meron sa sample space? We're tossing a pair of 6-sided dice. 36, di ba? So, we partially write 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, and so on. 36 lahat yan pag sinulat natin. So, the cardinality of S is gonna be 36. Anong cardinality ni A? Ilan ba sa mga pairs na yan yung same number sila? So, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, ilan sila? 6. So, 1/6 ang answer natin kay P of A. Alright, so next, moving on. Kakagamit ko lang nitong app na to kaya medyo hindi pa ako sanay. Sulat natin yan. P of A 1/6. Nasagot na natin yan. Gusto ko pula. So next, probability that different numbers are obtained. How would we answer that? Letter B, let's denote as probability of B. We should note na kapag hindi sila same, different sila, di ba? So baliktaran sila. So saying that two numbers are not the same is equivalent to A prime or A complement. Di ba? So that's gonna be 30 out of 36. Sige, wait lang ha. Para step by step tayo. From our rules, 1 minus P of A lang ito, di ba? So 1 minus 1/6. It's gonna be 5/6 or 30/36. Hayaan nyo na yan. May mga ganyan na ano. Pag sumasagot pala kayo ng ganito, I prefer na fractions na lang. Preference lang naman yun. Hindi ko naman kayo mamalian. Ang maganda lang sa fractions kasi is hindi na kayo mag-round off. Round off, round up, round down. Ganyan na talaga. Eksakto yan. So clear tayo sa 5 ay sa 5 tuloy. Sa B. A and B. So P of B is equal to 5/6. Letter C. What's the probability that the numbers obtained result to a sum of 6? P of C natin yan. N of C over N of S lang ulit ito. 36 naman ito. 36 lang naman ulit yung 36 lang naman ulit yung cardinality ng sample space natin. Ilan yung pairs na nag-result sa sum of 6? 3 lang ba? 6 ba? Ibilangin nyo. Merong 1, 5, merong 2, 4, may 3, 3, may 4, 2, may 5, 1. So 5 lang. 5 out of 36. So P of C is equal to 5/36. And then, letter D. Burahin ko lang lahat yan. What's the probability of event P? Event B is either A or B. So basically, we're being asked A union B. Dali lang tama yung 1, but pag sinabi kasi natin A or B, either A or B, union yan. So it's the same as A union B. Pag sinabing A and B, A intersection B. Para lang clear. All bases covered. So tama, A union B yan. By the probability loss na minention natin kanina, eto siya. Diba? P of A is 1/6, P of B is 5/6. What's the probability of A intersection B? Tingnan natin, basahin natin maigi kung ano itong to Anong probability na same number yung makukuha ko, tapos different din sila at the same time? Meron bang ganun? Wala, di ba? Wala namang number na tulad na magkaiba pa. So 0 lang yan. Kaya magiging 1 yung sagot. Or 100%. So yan, kailangan ko ba talaga ipakita lahat yan para namang common sense na 100%? Well, wait. There are other ways to show it using our probability loss. Kunwari, letter B ulit, probability of set B yung gusto nating kunin, of event B. You have to realize na A means they're the same number, B means they're different numbers. Pag sinabi mong same or different, it's exhaustive. By that, I mean lahat ng outcomes, mako-cover ko na. So it's the same as getting the probability of the sample space. So it's equal to 1. Yun naman yung logic behind this kaya naging 1 yan. Basically, lahat ng outcomes kasali. So, sige, kamusta? Okay pa? Kaya pa. Sige, the rest, okay pa naman. Kuha naman yung Sige na, ayan. So move on na tayo. Conditional probability. So conditional probability is given by this equation. So this is read as what's the probability of B given A. So parang given yung basa dito sa vertical line na yan. P of B given A. Okay, so why do we need to study conditional probability? This is actually very important if you go to higher stat or more applications ng statistics. Medyo fundamental concept ito. Bakit? Kasi imagine, let B be the event where I get a 4.0 in stat 101. Let A be the event where I get a 100% score on quiz 1. Imagine, P of B. What's the probability of B? let's say subjective approach na lang tayo. I feel like there's an 80% chance of me getting a 4.0 in Stat 101. Ang nangyari, naka 100 ka sa quiz 1. So ngayon, anong probability na makaka-4 ako kapag alam kong perfect ako sa quiz 1? Di ba mas yayabang ka niyan? Parang, uy, perfect ko naman si quiz 1. Mas madali lang pala si Stat 101. So maybe 95%. So it changes. When there's some other event that has already happened, so given a condition, the probability of event be happening changes. So that's why yun yung Disney conditional probability. And apparently, in order to get P of B given A, this is the formula. P of A intersection B over P of A. Okay. So, move on na agad tayo dito. Example 2. So, the probability of a vehicle crossing the bridge is blue is 0.12. The probability that it's a camper is 0.28. Probability that it's a blue camper is 0.09. What's the probability of events A and A to D? Alright. So, let's start off with defining yung events. Tulad nito. Dinenote ko yung event BI 4, event AI perfect sa quiz 1. Ano yung mga events natin dito? So, let B be the event where yung dumadaang vehicle is blue. C be the event na camper yung dadaan. Yan lang naman yung relevant events. Excuse me. Yeah, so yung 0.12 is gonna be P of B. Anong probability na blue? 0.12. Anong probability na C? Na camper siya? 0.28. What about 0.09? That's the probability of what? Intersection union. Intersection, you'll be tempted to make another event pero it can be expressed as B and C lang naman. So blue ka na, camper ka pa. B and C, 0.09, 9%. So alright, now that we have these three given quantities, let's solve for each item. So letter A, what's the probability that the vehicle is blue or a camper? Sabi natin kapag or union, alam natin pag union, add lang natin yung dalawa. Subtract natin yung intersection. So in the end, we're gonna get 0.12 plus 0.28 minus 0.09 or 0.31. 31%. So 31% chance that the vehicle crossing will be blue or is a camper. Okay, letter B. A, ito ay B. What's the probability that a camper crossing the bridge is blue? So ito yung pinagagawa ko sa mga students. Pakisagot ito, paki-fill in the blanks. Ano yung nasa loob ni parenthesis? Sa letter B. Is it B intersection C? Pag sinabi natin B intersection C, blue camper. Yung blue camper yung dadaan. Actually, hindi siya intersection. So B given C, tingnan natin. B given C nga ba? Pag sinabi natin na B given C, alam natin na camper, anong probability na blue siya? So it's letter B, tama yan. B given C. Wait lang. Anong probability na blue pag alam kong camper yung nagka-cross ng bridge? So being a camper is already satisfied. It's a condition na given. So yan. So since given naman siya, using our formula, it's gonna be P of B intersection C over P of C. So bakit P of C yung nasa ilalim? Yung condition lagi yung nasa ilalim. Kung ano yung nandito sa kanan. Yan yung nasa denominator. So given naman ito, 0.09 over 0.28. So 9 over 28. So yan yung answer. Alright. Sige, letter C. So for letter C, ano naman yung pinapahanap? P of what? C given B. Ayun na pala, may sagot na pala. P of C given B. So P of C given B is just P of C intersection B over P of B. So that's just, ano ba yung C intersection B? B intersection C din lang yan, di ba? Camper na blue. Blue na camper. Tulad lang yun, di ba? So that's gonna be 0.09 as well. P of B is 0.12. So that's gonna be 3/4. Lowest terms natin. Or 0.75. So that's letter C. So lastly, how about letter D? Letter D, a vehicle crossing is not a camper or is not blue. Ano naman yan? Fill in the blanks ulit. Sige, ayan. B, complement. So this is B complement. Union kasi or C complement. So tama. B complement, union, C complement. And sorry, iniiwan ko talaga sa inyo yung mga sagot muna sa ngayon. Paano sasagutan? Next step. Next step dito. Tama yan. B complement, union, C complement. So, okay, may nakuha akong sagot. Any other gustong answer? Sige, mayroon ako na-receive na answer dito. P of B prime daw is 1, wait lang is 1 minus P of B. So actually that's correct, but it's just part of the answer. Tama ito, 0.88 naman talaga si P of B prime. P of C prime is gonna be, repeat for C daw, 0.72. Tama rin yan. Pero kulang pa. And yung sagot ni Edwin dito, yung pinagsama yung sagot ni Enzo. So tama na ganito mo siya gagawin. Okay. Problema, alam mo ba kung ano yung intersection? Tama yan, ha? Tama yung idea na yan. Alam mo ba yan? So, wala rin. Ang hirap sagutin, 'di ba? Hindi ko alam kung ano yung B prime intersection C prime. So actually, kulang pa rin kasi talaga yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Meron pa ako isang i-mention na rule, yung De Morgan's laws. So the De Morgan's laws suggest that given two sets A and B, De Morgan's laws. Uy, naglag. Ayan. So A union B, complement niya is just A complement intersection B complement. Equal lang daw yung dalawang yan. Kung curious kayo, iwan ko na sa inyo yan. Search yung formal proof, gawin nyo through Venn diagrams. Basta tama ito. Basically, nangyayari is parang nadidistribute yung prime, yung complement. Tapos yung union nagiging intersection. So yan, ganun daw siya. So given this, we can actually, paano ba to? Pwede nating i-express ng ganito, di ba? Ito ay ito rin lang. Eh meron na tayong sagot dito, 0.31 yan. Diba? 0.31 sabi natin yan. Eh complement lang nung 0.31 yung kinukuha natin. Alam ang complement niya? 0.69. So ang magiging sagot will be 0.88 plus 0.72 minus 0.69. So ang sagot ay, pa-compute yan. .91, okay. So 91% chance na mangyayari yung event na yun. Not a camper or is not blue. So may easier way ba to do that? Unfortunately, you're really gonna have to use De Morgan's laws. So kung hindi itong solution ni Edwin, paano ko gagawin? Pwede ko rin siya kasing gawin na ganito. Using De Morgan's laws ulit. B intersection C, complement siya, di ba? Yan naman, yan yung by De Morgan's laws, magiging ganyan siya. So since complement siya ng intersection, 1 minus the intersection lang, probability of the intersection. Alam natin kanina na 0.09 siya. So 1 minus 0.09, 0.91. So point lang natin is any rule as long as it follows yung nakalist sa atin. Tama yan. You're gonna arrive at the same answer. So question so far. Krisha. Okay, saan galing yung 0.69? Binura ko kaagad eh. Sige, balik natin. Galing yan dun sa solution ni galing sa solution ni Edwin kanina. So P of B complement plus P of C complement minus P of B complement intersection C complement. Yan, di ba? Yan yung solution niya. 0.88 ito, na-define na. Yung sabi ni Enzo kanina, P of C complement, na-define na din, 0.72. 1 minus 0.12, 1 minus 0.28 lang. Ito saan galing? Yung 0.69. I have no way of getting this using the rules na meron tayo, di ba? But, using De Morgan's laws, pwede ko i-express itong thing na ito lang as P of B union C complement. Okay. So, since ganyan siya, bakit naging ganyan? De Morgan's nga ulit. Ito. One of these two, yung ginamit natin. Particularly, ito, yung una. So, since ganyan siya, 1 minus P of B union C lang siya. Yung P of B union C, ito yun, di ba? Letter A. 0.31 sabi natin. So, 1 minus 0.31 is 0.69. Doon siya nanggaling. Okay? Ayun. Sige, maliwanag. So, move on pa. See, next. So, independent events naman. So, we introduce yet another concept. Two events A and B are independent when either of these two conditions follow. So, let's put it into context na naman. Ano ba ang independent events? So, kunwari, let A be event where I get a 4.0 in STT101 na naman. Yan yung nakaka-relate kayo eh. Letter B, event where I eat adobo before finals. Two events yung dalawang yan, di ba? But imagine, what's the probability that I'll get a 4.0 in STT101 given that I ate adobo before finals? Di ba walang kwenta yung pagkain ng adobo? Malamang-lamang most likely. Dun sa probability na makakuha ko ng 4.0. So it's gonna be the same. So these two events are independent. So yun yung gist na independent events. Ganun talaga. Sinadya kong ganyan ka labo yung example kasi yun yung common na independent events talaga. Wala silang pakialam sa isa't isa. So okay. We define yet another term, mutually exclusive events. Hindi nakasulat dyan. Baka lang ma-interchange. Pag sinabi kasi natin mutually exclusive events, basically disjoint events or events na hindi pwede mangyari at the same time. Example nito, hindi ko lang na-mark as disjoint kanina. Nadaanan na natin yung odd and even. So A, odd number. B, even number. Mutually exclusive sila eh. Ano yung sabihin ng mutually exclusive? Hindi pwede mangyari at the same time. Wala kang number na odd na even pa. So yan, mutually exclusive ito. Whereas, itong events A and B natin sa baba, pwede naman mangyari sila at the same time, di ba? 4 ka sa STT101, adobo yung kinain before finals. Hindi sila mutually exclusive. But they are independent. Yan, pinopoint out ko lang, magkaiba yan. Madalas mapag interchange. Independence and mutually exclusive. Ang independent ay walang pakialam sa isa't isa. Not dependent nga. Okay. So what's so interesting about this property? Yung property na ito. Yan. So, if we rewrite yung P of A given B, by definition, it's gonna be P of A intersection B over P of B. Saan ko naman nakuha yan? Definition, kanina. Sabi sa independence, kapag independent yung dalawang event, equal lang daw siya sa P of A. So, this equation, tanggalin na natin to, totoo yan. True ito, di ba? And if we transpose P of B on the other side, it's gonna be P of A intersection B is equal to P of A times P of B. Yan, so we have a way of getting intersection, probability ng intersection. Kanina kasi wala, hirap na hirap nga tayo dito kanina, di ba? May intersection tayo, kailangan pa natin i-convert. Di ba? Wala tayong formula for intersection. But when independent ang dalawang events, take note, condition yung independence, minumultiply lang pala yung P of A at P of B. Pakilala, pag independent lang ito totoo. So let's apply it in a problem. Example 3, two ambulances operating independently are each available 90% of the time. What's the probability that yan? A, B, C. So first step is to define our events. Kunwari event A is event where ambulance 1 is available. B be the event where ambulance 2 is available. Yung magkaibang event sila. Okay, dalawang ambulances daw, pangalan natin A and B. So, P of A, the probability na available si A is apparently 90%. Sabi dyan each available 90% of the time. P of B, 90% din. So now that we have established preliminaries, let's answer the problem. Letter A, say kayo ulit, ano na namang nasa loob ng parenthesis? Sabihin nyo, both are available. Ibig sabihin, available si A at available si B at the same time. Sige, ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng both are available? A and B or A or B? So yun. Sorry pa ulit-ulit kasi yan talaga, once makuha nyo naman yan, formula na lang lahat Once makuha nyo kung paano i-set up, A and B yung hinahanap. So intersection siya, di ba? Kaya ako medyo pa ulit-ulit dyan. Yung pag-set up ng problem, yan lang naman yung problema na yan lang yung malaking problema. So A intersection B ito, independent daw. Di P of A times P of B lang siya. Or 0.81. 81% chance of both being available at the same time. So, independent lang gagana Letter B. What's the probability that at least one ambulance is available? Ito naman yung union. Bakit ganun? May at least one ka ngayon, hindi naman siya nakalagay. Pero imagine, Venn diagram ulit tayo. Pag sinabing at least one, pwedeng si A yung available lang, si B lang yung available, or pwedeng both sila available. Ano nabuo ko? Yung union, di ba? A or B lang ibig sabihin ng letter B. So it's gonna be P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection B. Sa nakuha yan, yung rules kanina, yung 5. Rule number 5. So it's 0.9 plus 0.9 minus 0.81. 0.81 is nakuha dito sa letter A, giving us 0.99. So 99% chance, pag nangailangan ka ng ambulansya, may available na ambulansya. Then lastly, letter C, what's the probability that no ambulance is available? Kayo ulit, fill up. Ayun pala, may sagot na pala. A union B complement. So A union B complement noon. Okay? So, tama yan. Or pwede rin natin sabihin na probability of A complement and B complement. Hindi available si A at hindi available si B. Yun. And by De Morgan's laws naman, magkatulad lang yan, di ba? Okay. So, tama yan. Tama parehas. So, if we solve for this, kapag ito yung inano natin, so that's gonna be 1 minus P of A union B. 1 minus, ano ba yung A union B? Ito na, 0.99. So, 0.01. 1% chance. Okay? Paano pag ito naman yung naisip ko? Sige, pag yan yung naisip mo na, na formulation ng probability problem, madali rin lang yan. Alam natin na independent, so, multiplicative lang siya. Kung alam natin na 0.90 yung A prime is gonna be 0.1, B prime is gonna be 0.1. So 0.01 din yung lalabas. 1% chance talaga. Kahit ano maisip mo, tatama at tatama ka. So okay na to? Ayan, sige, may question. Pag po union yung event, subtract po lagi yung intersection nila. Laging ganun. Laging isusubtract si intersection kapag union yung kinukuha. Tama yun. Nga, sabi ko sa inyo, yung limang yun talagang sila, walang palya. Laging susundin natin yun. Axioms nga sila kung tawagin. So yun na, malapit na tayo matapos. Yan, theorem of total probability. Hindi ko nababasahin. Basta mahirap siya intindihin. Di ba? Mahirap intindihin yung theorem as stated this way. So best we can do is maybe to use an example. So a housewife decides to exterminate rats in her kitchen by using mouse traps on 5 different locations. So pag illustrate natin, parang ganito. Ito yung bahay niya, mayroong 5 different locations niya. Sabi, ibig natin iba-ibang kwarto. Pangalan natin L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. Okay. So the traps have success rates of 25% sa L1, 10% sa L2, 35% sa L3, and so on. So for each location, the probability that a rat will pass by is 40%, 30%, and so on. What's the likelihood that the rat will be trapped? So yun yung tanong. Meron akong 5 nakaset na trap, anong probability na mahuli ko siya? So we denote 2 events, actually 6 events. R be the event of trapping the rat. Madali, ito ay P of R lang. P of R yung hinahanap natin. Yan yung tanong. L1 is the event where the rat passes through location 1. So I'll do it 5 times up until location 5. So parang LI na lang. Bakit pinong LI? Counter lang yung I, 1 to 5. Yan. So LI is the event where the rat passes through location I. So yan. So next step, ano yung mga preliminary na probabilities natin na yan? So P of, Hello? Sorry. Yung 0.25 ano yan? So that's the probability that the rat success rate, the rat will be trapped given nasa location 1 yun. Nasa location 1 siya dadaan. It's gonna be 0.25. Probability that rat will be trapped given it passes location 2, 10% chance. And so on until we arrive at P of R given L5, 10%. Okay. So what about 40, 31, 15, and 0.05? So yan ay, anong probability na dadaan ako sa L1? 40%. Anong probability na dadaan ako sa L2? 30%. ... until L5. 5%. Okay. So yun yung mga given natin. Basically, may 10 tayong given. So bakit si theorem of total probability yung gagamitin natin? So ito siya. So basahin na natin ngayon. If the events B1, B2 up to Bk constitute a partition of the sample space such that P of Bi is not equal to 0 for all I, then for any of the event A of S, this is true. So ngayon, sinasabi natin yung bahay ay kaya ko hatiin sa L3 hanggang L5. Bahay ko yung sample space. R ngayon yung A na yan. The probability of trapping the rat is gonna be the probability of dadaan siya sa location 1 times probability na matatrap siya given na location 1 plus L2 times P of R given L2. Sinusundan ko lang to ha. Plus dot 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 until L5. So yun. So since alam na natin yung mga yan, paki-compute, magiging 25% times 40% plus 10% times 3% and so on. Yun lang pala si P of R. Yun yung sinasabi ni theorem of total probability. So paki-sagot yung blank. So multiply lang yan. Eh, sinusolve ko ba? Hintayin ko ah. One-fifth. Tama yan. So, 1/5 0.2 or 1/5. So, 1/5 yung answer. So, 1 out of 5 chance or 20% chance of trapping the rat. Lipat na lang ako ng bahay kung ganyan. Dapat walang rat na lang, di ba? So, yun, that's it. So, that's theorem of total probability. Then, we move on. Last na talaga, si base rule. And kung gets naman si theorem of total probability, sige, i-drawing nga natin, visual representation lang. So, suppose, yan yung sample space, yung bahay. And then, the event R, I can draw it like something like this. Yan yung event na matatrap si rat. So, sinasabi ni theorem of total probability is just that the total area nitong blob na green na yan is just this area. Yung nasa L1 siya, yung nasa L2, nasa L3, L4, tsaka L5. Pag in-add ko lahat yung shaded na blue, makuha ko yung total area. Yun lang siya. Yun lang naman yung sinasabi niya. Masyado lang maraming notations na nakalagay. Then lastly, base rule. Huwag na natin basahin yan. Basahin nyo lang siguro in your own time. P of B sub R given A is equal to this by definition. Definition naman siya ng definition siya ng conditional probability, di ba? Ito lang yung bago. Apparently, this particular statement, we can decompose it into the following components. And then yung P of A, alam na natin kunin from sige, pag nagpa-homework or quiz daw ako, may pa-drawing ba? Wala. Kahit di na kayo mag-drawing. Ito lang. Parang ganito. Ito pinakamalinis nating solution. So, kunwari A, paki-set up, gamitin ko anong rule, sagot. Yan, ganun lang. It's better lang na ganito, na i-define niyo yung events, i-define niyo yung mga given. Usual na pag nagsasagot kayo ng math word problems, di ba? Ilagay yung given, ilagay yung mga preliminary na ano ba yung A, ano ba yung B. Usual. Okay? So, nasa na tayo? Base rule. So, yan. Ito lang yung bago. Pwede ko i-decompose itong numerator into P of BR and P of A given BR. So, next. Ayan, example. Sagutan lang natin. Last slide na yan. So, So from the previous example, the rat example, if the rat is successfully trapped, what's the probability that it was in L2 na na-trap ko siya? So if we set up the probability problem, alam kong na-trap si rat, anong chance na sa L2 yun nangyari? Diba? So ganyan, P of L2 given R. So by definition, it's just gonna be P of L2 intersection R over P of R. P of R alam ko na ngayon kasi alam ko na yung theorem of total probability. But the numerator, apparently we can decompose it into P of L2 times P of R given L2. Eh alam ko lahat yan. Ang P of L2 ko ay 0.3, P of R given L2 is 0.1, P of R is 1/5. So plug in lang. 0.3 times 0.1 over 0.2, giving us 0.15, 15%. Iba-iba ako, no? Malinis kasi yung decimal, kaya nag-decimal ako dito eh. Pero 3 over 20. Same thing. So, guys, so okay na. Hanggang doon na lang tayo.